Thank you, ma'am. Really learned a lot about the food ecosystems that we have in our country at this point in time. I'll move to the last panel before our tea networking break. This is the largest cohort of individuals that's going to come up. It's a very strong panel that's been put together. So, may I first request our moderator, Mr. Kazim Saeed, the Chief Executive Officer of the Pakistan Agricultural Coalition, to come up, and followed by our speakers, Mr. James Robert Okot, the Acting Country Representative for FAO in Pakistan, Mr. Hassan Khurram Hanif, a progressive farmer and agri consultant, Mr. Hamza Kamal, the Head of Marketing, Syngenta, Pakistan, Mr. Usman Zahir Ahmed, Chairman, Pakistan Dairy Association and CEO, Fauji Foods, Ms. Coco Ushiyama, the Country Representative for Pakistan for the World Food Programme, Mr. Kashif Thanvi, the Investment Director at Acumen, and lastly, Major General Shahid Nazir, the Chief Executive Officer of the Green Pakistan Initiative.
Afternoon. Thank you very much, Dr. Zila, for stimulating keynote. We have a stellar panel, and my job is to make sure that we hear as much from them as possible, so I'm going to try to stay out of your way. The only thing I'm going to point out is that all the sessions in this conference, you're going to see, most of the time you're going to find sectors talking about climate as something that comes from outside their sector and affects them, manufacturing or banks, etc. It's something to include in their business model. Agriculture is the business where climate is inside your business model every single day of the year, even before we had this level of climate change. So let's start first by hearing from a practicing farmer what their experience of dealing with climate change without all the tools that we have been talking about that ought to be with farmers that Dr. Zilaf pointed out. So I'm going to request Mr. Hassan Khurram Hanif, who's a practicing farmer, to tell us a little bit about that. Hassan, over to you.
Thank you, Kazim. So I think this really brings to light some of the issues we've discussed today. Climate directly affects us all across the agricultural value chain, but farmers are most directly impacted. Kazim, I think the biggest issue is it adds a lot of uncertainty to our business model. We often, in an educated audience like this, we talk about risk-adjusted returns. We cannot calculate our risk. We have absolutely no way of doing so. I'll highlight a few problems which we've faced in the past. We have major climatic events. We've spoken about floods. We've spoken about torrential rain. Even minor climatic events, the kinds that we don't feel, such as the pleasant weather that we had in the last month in Punjab, in which it was raining really frequently. My wife and kids were really happy. I wasn't. All our wheat crop lodged. We saw yields decline by around 10 to 15% this year compared to last year. And now we face a wheat crisis. Even though our area under cultivation actually, as per official records, went up a bit, we still are short by 2.5 to 3 million tons, and that's because of the weather. You can't blame anybody for it, but you cannot plan around these events. If we talk about 2 years ago, we had intense heat waves in the summer, and most of our early rice season crops failed, to the extent that lots of us cut up our rice crop and fed it to our animals because there was no grain on it. Such things are very difficult to plan for. And in an economy that is already very stressed, the agricultural economy, I think no one needs to explain this, is one of thin margins, lots of unpredictability, and now you add a lot of risk to it. It means that lots of people will choose either not to do this profession or not to invest in it as much as we need to invest in this, because as we all know, it's a grossly underinvested sector. So, sorry, back to you.
Thank you very much. That gives a taste of what life is like as a farmer under these. I'll next ask Hamza Kamal from Syngenta how innovative agriculture input can empower farmers in the face of this level of climate.
Thanks, Kazim. When we talk about being innovative and being productive, I think we'll have to go back to our roots. And when I say roots, I mean it literally as well as figuratively. Figuratively, the root of all agriculture starts from the seed. And today in the world, there are climate resilient seeds available. What we need to do is bring them to Pakistan and keep, and I'll be very honest about it, keep the public sector out of it. Let the private sector deal with it. And what we have achieved in corn, let us achieve in other crops as well. And figuratively about roots, when I say, I mean soil as well. So while we all talk about water scarcity, floods, water abundance, and everything else, but we are not talking about how climate is impacting the soil health. So the bacteria in the soil actually act as a beneficial organism for our agriculture. And with continued temperatures above 50 degrees, that gets destroyed and ultimately results in low productivity of the farm. So secondly, what I would talk about is precision agriculture, and again coming from a farm input company. When I say precision agriculture, that is in terms of farm input, specifically fertilizers. Again, looking at the best practices in the world, we have customized fertilizers available now. So a farmer would first test his soil, check the level of N, P, Ks, and other micronutrients, and then get customized fertilizer made for their crop. Again, we while are now dabbing into NPKs, we still are far away from customized fertilizer, which is according to the soil that I have in my field. So that is something that again we should look into, and it's something that is a just do it item, a low hanging fruit. I'm using some cliches, but it is what it is. Uh, Thirdly, when I talk about productivity, I think more than productivity today, what's important is predictability, and for that we need accurate forecasting of our temperatures, of our weather, of our climate conditions, and all of these. Again, in this case, I wouldn't say in the best in among the world, but it's available in Pakistan today. There are organizations which are offering uh, high accuracy forecasting for weather, and based on those weather patterns, you can plan your crops, you can plan your inputs, you can plan when to spray on a crop based on the temperature, the rainfall data, and everything. So we don't have to reinvent anything in agriculture. We know how to do it. We've been doing it for, I don't know, 6,000 years, because agriculture was being done when the early Indus civilization was there. And today we only need to modify our practices by a small margin, and then the result would be greater in productivity. So just a few ideas, just a few inputs that I could share, looking at what is available in the world, what we're doing in Pakistan, and what can we implement quickly in our field. Back to you, Qasim.
Thank you, Hamza. When Hamza says government should get out of the way, public sector should get out of the way, I know a lot of people smiled and nearly started cheering. What we need is, we can't do this without government. What you need is government to get out of the commercial side of these activities, from the commercial activity. And I think also to facilitate the private sector in a way that they don't have to wait for seed approvals for years and years. Now, agriculture is not only about crops but also about livestock. In fact, the estimates in our national accounts, GDP accounts, 60% of the agriculture GDP is livestock. So I'm going to request Mr. Usman Zahir Ahmed, who leads Fauji Food and is chairman of the Pakistan Dairy Association, to give us some idea of how the dairy sector is being impacted by climate change.
Thank you, Kazim. I think there are a couple of themes that we picked up earlier in the day today. जैसे आपने कहा, livestock is in Pakistan mostly about dairy. And if you look at it, the consumers in Pakistan buy something close to 8.3 trillion rupees worth of milk every year. So that is a significant number. And I think something that Dr. Zila Muni just touched upon, the challenge that we have is that out of that 8.3 trillion, nearly 7.9 trillion rupees is informal. It's unorganized. It flows through a supply chain where the milk does not remain milk. I think earlier in the day, Dr. Iram was talking about it in terms of so, we need this land and the resources and the water to grow our crops and to feed the animals that give this productivity of milk. Our yields are one of the lowest in the world. At 3.8 liter per animal, Pakistan is far behind the regional average of 6 liter, and Europe is 22 liters per annum. So what that means is that we are missing out on, and in order to change that, it's not something that we have to reinvent entirely. If we learn from India, what they did was that they basically put in so if you want to drive up yield in dairy, there can be multiple factors, but the stage that we are in, we have to look for the single largest contributing factor. What is it that's going to move the dial the most? In our case, it is genetic. Over the years, we've had a genetic dilution of the farmers leading up to this unprecedented drop in yields in dairy sector in particular. This, by the way, has not happened in, for instance, in poultry, where the opposite has happened and the genetics have contributed significantly. So a 1 liter improvement in yield would mean roughly 3 trillion rupees in GDP. So this is the scale and the potential. And the way to go about it is to have a genetic policy or a genetic direction in place, something which is easy to follow for our farmers. We can't take the path of Europe, where every single animal is tagged, tracked, known. The genetic path is very well known. But we have to take a simplified, what is the ideal cross that you want to promote for the local breeds. Whether it is Jersey, whether it is Friesian, it is the first step. And that, for instance, if we can take this 3.8 to the regional average of 6, that's additional, 7 trillion rupees, almost doubles the dairy production for the country. So I think that's the path. And when we talk about it in terms of, we talk about what is one thing that the farmer needs to do. At the same time, we talk about what is one thing that needs to happen for this sector. It is formalization. 98% of dairy is informal. All of Nestle, all of Friesland, Engro, all the dairy companies put together are just 2%. You cannot direct or organize or make productive a segment which is so informal, as Dr. Zila Puni was just talking about. The entire supply chain is unorganized, and what that means is there is another angle to the climate challenge that we have, which is the human challenge. We have 40% children under 5 are stunted currently, which means, and this is a paradoxical thing, because Pakistan is one of the highest dairy consuming nations in the world. So with a 0.6 liter per person consumption of dairy, it is paradoxical that we have such high stunting. So I think this is something if there's one thing that we need to do to improve productivity, that's genetics. If there's one thing we need to do to improve our productivity and nourishment and revenue, frankly, it is formalization of the sector.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark. I think the perspective we usually take is of what happens in Pakistan, how things have been. And often you find people saying, well, this is a unique country, you can't import lessons from other countries. So we have the fortune of having 2 experts on the panel who are international professionals who have great love for Pakistan. I'm going to request Mr. James Okoth, who's leading the Food and Agriculture Organization in Pakistan, and I know as an international professional he really believes in Pakistan. and it's the successes that have happened within Pakistan. So, James, if you could help us see, in light of the challenges in Pakistan and also some of the successes we've seen, what international experience from comparative countries can teach us. Please.
Thank you very much, cousin. I think the most important aspect is to appreciate that in Pakistan, I think it is largely informed by or shaped by the Indus system. To what extent are we harnessing the system? I think we invested a lot of time in ensuring delivery without looking at the issues of efficiency. Now, as the water scarcity is running out, we are now beginning to look at efficiency as a point of address. I wouldn't go out of Pakistan to look for examples, because we have lots of good practice. Lots of good practice. The challenge is they're extremely fragmented. They're extremely small in nature, and very often, where is the farmer in this discussion? I don't know how many farmers beyond the progressives are in this room. So very often we discuss about the farmers, climate change, when they are not in place. However, the opportunities are enormous in Pakistan. A lot of models have been tested out. We only need to make sure that we are able to bring this together and take it to scale. Of course, Pakistan also, we need to look at Pakistan from its size. Which country do we want to compare to Pakistan? There are good practices which have been validated. There are good pathways that have been validated. I'll give a close relative in terms of the basin to Pakistan, Egypt. Egypt went into satellite-based water management, whereby they are doing a lot of water accounting based on satellite imagery to make sure that they are able to see what extent they are using water efficiently. So the monitoring. When you look at Morocco, Morocco has a very similar situation like in Balochistan, where there is a lot of water scarcity. They have been able to produce largely because they aligned the crops to the water availability. When you look at climate smart agricultural practices that have been promoted, many of them are appropriate, but we have not aligned the appropriate crops to the practices. So there are a number of things which are already existing, and that is the hopeful message I want to bring to this panel, that there is a lot that is existing. We only need to recast what we are to do and how we are to harness those opportunities.
Thank you so much.